Hello, and thank you for joining us in the next installment of the EMA webinar series. These webinars are powered by the Hubbard Management System. Now, if you're watching this, chances are you're a WISE member, and you recognize that you have your hands on the most powerful management technology on earth. But the results that you get depend on how well you use it, which depends on how well you learned it, which depends on how well you studied it, which really breaks down into it, both its theory and application. We're very lucky that every 2 weeks we get to speak with some of the most stellar names in WISE to find out how they did that, how they did exactly that, how they applied and took Mr. Hubbard's theories to become the incredible successes that they are. Today, we are really excited to have Mr. Christopher Music. Christopher is a 25-year plus veteran of the financial planning profession. He is the founder of the results-based financial planning products and services called Econologics, and the creator of the Private Practice Millionaire. He has been seen on NBC, CBS, ABC, and Fox affiliates around the country, and published in Forbes magazine, Newsweek, the Wall Street Journal, and various healthcare industry publications as a financial prosperity expert for private practice professionals who own a business. Christopher Music, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks, Dan. I'm glad to be here.
We're excited to have you. Christopher, just take us back a little bit. How did you first learn about the Hubbard Management System, and what was the reason that you got involved?
Well, I had graduated with a master's degree in business administration from Kent State University in the early 90s, and realized when I tried to go out there and start my own financial planning firm, I realized I didn't know how to run a business. And it was very ironic, actually.
Yeah.
But I was introduced to the Hubbard Management System back in 1993. And used one reference, the gross income senior datum, and doubled my practice and doubled it again and doubled it again, and ended up selling it to my associate, doing a standard power change to my associate for twice the average market value.
Wow.
Practices my size. Back in 2002, and I moved to Florida and decided to become a consultant in the Hubbard Management System, which coincidentally, I believe I'm the only financial advisor in North America who's also a certified consultant, which is very interesting.
Wow.
But anyway, then I started Econologics in the depths of the Great Recession of 2008, when I realized that there was no standard scientific approach to personal financial planning and creating predictable and consistent results for anyone in a systematic way.
Now, you didn't, I mean, you obviously had dealt with clients up to that point to come to that realization. Was it sort of shocking to you when you did? Was there like that aha moment when you were like, what the hell is going on?
What the hell is going on? I said that every day, multiple times a day. It's interesting, professionals, because I know a lot of chiropractors, a lot of dentists, and a lot of people who have been helped by different consultants over the years to learn and implement this management system. But there's a huge disconnect between making the business run profitably and taking those profits and getting them into the household business, which is a business. Right. And being able to then manage those on channels allocated toward goals, and being able to put order on those finance lines in the home. And of course, when you don't do that, it disperses. If you ever say, hey, I made all this money, but where did it all go? Well, you're experiencing a dispersal. And that's indicative of lack of real planning and real systematic management of household resources that come in from these different economic activities like your practice or investments or whatever.
When you go into a practice, right, and you see some of these larger practices, what percentage of them would you say the owners do not have as much net worth, if you would, than you would expect? You know what I'm saying? Like, you would expect that somebody doing multi-million-dollar practices would have multi-million dollars put away in terms of their own net worth. Is that not the case as much as we would think?
By actual surveys, 98%. Do not have the kind of wealth they should. Do not have the kind of wealth they should have.
Wow.
Yeah, 98%. Yeah, it's overall lack of planning. And the problem is, we go to accountants to think that we're going to get financial planning, and it's not where to go. They're historians. They're not futurists. So we end up going. We have no idea, because my profession, the certified financial planner, the investment broker, the insurance agent, whatever person calls themselves a financial planner, has totally failed us because they've had no technology to provide any consistent or predictable result, as people have experienced in their own businesses using a workable management system.
You know, it's funny. When I first started my practice, before I found the Hubbard management technology, I ran into some problems, and I called up one of my good friends who was at Wharton's Business School. He had
Hmm.
graduated Wharton's, and I said, "Well, he went to business school." And I said, "Hey, Mike, come on in, and maybe you can give me some ideas of how I can actually turn this around." And he came in, and he had nothing. I mean,
Nothing.
literally nothing. And I said, "Mike, I don't understand. You went to the top business school, but so sometimes the business schools or the thing, they really don't have the technology to get the products, right?"
I wanted my money back. I still want my money back. It was a waste of time, man. You know, the
Wow.
reason why is it's
Wow.
all theoretical. It's all theoretical based on look. You go to college to be a yes person or employee for a publicly traded company because who do you think gives them all their endowments? Who do you think they want to train to be employees? They don't train entrepreneurship. They don't teach you a system where you can universally apply it to any business. It's only for huge publicly traded companies, and all the theory comes from that.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable till, I had the same similar thing. You said gross income senior datum. I had sat down, I read one of Mr. Hubbard's things that was on rewards and penalties. And it
Mhm.
was one of those shocking moments where you just say, wait a minute, there is a technology here. There's something that actually can be used to
Yeah.
get the products and stuff. So awesome. Well, Christopher, let's jump in, my friend. Let's jump into whatever you wanted to talk to us about.
All right. So today I want to talk to you about something that is not talked about. And I do a seminar on this, a 1 hour seminar called The Hidden Destroyers of Wealth, of Personal Wealth. And the reason why is because we are all reasonable about, you know, people and situations, and especially when it relates to finance. And I'm going to couch this in terms of a private practice owner, because that's who I deal with. But a small business owner, you're putting your life on the line, your risk, your energy, your passion, your blood, sweat, and tears to make something go right. So you not only have a forum to be able to live your passion, whatever that is, but you also have the economic rewards that are attendant to the risk of being in small business. And the fact that we don't have as much wealth as we should be having. Now, I'm thinking, and you need to think in terms of double to 10 times the wealth you have is really where we should be.
Wow.
And having debt at all after age 40 is like bizarre. I mean, just absolutely bizarre. Unless it's used only for business purposes, and there's an actual mathematical reason and risk management reason why we do that. But other than that, I mean, we should be very financially dependent from, let's say, age 40 on. And if we're not, something's bizarrely wrong. I mean,
Now,
it's just
Chris, when
like
you, when you say that when there is some legitimate debt, you're talking about, like, let's say, real estate debt or
yeah,
things
yeah,
of
yeah.
that nature. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
borrowing from small business because there's rules of borrowing, and if you align to those rules, which of course, based obviously in natural laws with mathematics and risk and probabilities and all these things, then you're doing fine. But to have a bunch of money on credit cards and to have car loans, student loans, I mean, come on, man, that's just crazy.
Not acceptable.
And it's not. And our culture is like, well, it's totally fine. Well, I'm going to get into this material as to why that's not okay. Because I don't we live in a culture today where we're all part of the matrix. And worst thing is, if you use Mr. Hubbard's definition, being positioned in another's time and space.
Hmm.
Being positioned in another's time and space. You know what that's a definition of?
No.
Slavery. So I'm not going to pull any punches here. I'm going to tell you how it is because we're all big boys and girls here, and if you want to be free, you can't be a slave. You can't have it both ways. And I'm all about independence and freedom, freedom, not only of spiritual but economic freedom. Because that is the number one tool that is being used to basically eliminate your ability to do what you want to do and make a major impact on the quality of life across you and your family and your groups and mankind as a whole. So I want to cover something here that invades our lives every single day, and it's a suppression.
Hmm.
And we have to deal with this, guys. We all deal with it every day because we're on planet Earth. That's a little bit suppressive. being an meat body and dealing with all of that stuff. It's a little bit suppressive,
Sure.
to a moral free spiritual being. So first of all let's define suppress. Because this is kind of important to know. If you look at the Oxford English Dictionary, I have here on my phone, the first definition is forcibly put an end to. To suppress is to forcibly put an end to suppress a rebellion, or to suppress, a certain group of people, or a religious movement, or whatever the case may be. Forcibly put an end to, stop it, crunch, put the brakes on. Definition number 3 is pretty important: to prevent or inhibit. So if you're being prevented from doing something that you want to do, that's suppression. If you're being inhibited from being able to be financially independent, that's suppressive. Of course, there's ethics involved in this too, but you can't go out and smoke pot whenever you want, that kind of thing, and think you're surviving. So, but there's suppression on doing the good things in life, creating good. That's what we're talking about when we talk about suppression in this regard. So it's squashing, it's stopping, it's hindering, it's putting the dampers on, it's slowing, it's all of these things to forcibly put an end to some forward motion or activity. So that is the first thing I want to cover. Now, suppression comes in its effects. There's someone who suppresses, then there's the person who is suppressed. And Mr. Hubbard had a very interesting term for the person who is suppressed. And that is called potential trouble source. Okay, potential trouble source. Now, every small business owner can become a potential trouble source, as well as any employee or anybody who's out here living on planet Earth at this time. So potential means obviously having the ability or the potentiality of occurring. Trouble is trouble, bad mojo, gnarly things happen. And a source is from something from which something is emanated or something comes from. So in the reference, PTS Personnel and Finance, Mr. Hubbard defines, here's what he says. He says, PTS means potential trouble source. So we have the acronym, PTS, means potential trouble source, a source of potential bad mojo. Now, this is a person who is connected to a suppressive person, group, or thing. Okay? So let's take suppressive person. Now, this is a being, a human being. Okay, now do you hear the echo too? Or is it just me?
I don't hear it.
Okay, well, I'm getting caught up by the echo, so potential trouble is a person connected to a suppressive person. So a suppressive person would be someone who is maybe a family connection, who is forcibly trying to stop you, or worse, overtly trying to stop you. Okay, and this could be someone like a family member, a well-meaning family member. You're a small business owner, so now we're trying to start our business, trying to hire employees, all these different types of things. And all of a sudden, we have someone asking you, are you sure you want to hire those staff?
Yeah.
Are you confident in your ability to manage those people? Things like that, right?
It's like getting too big for your britches and all the sayings like that, right? Sure.
Exactly. Okay, so then we have a suppressive. Well, a suppressive person also could be like, the big ones, like Attila the Hun, or George Soros,
right?
or a politician, or someone who's a wackadoo, whoever, right? It's someone who someone's connected to that is trying to stop or hinder or prevent them from doing something good. That's really that simple. All right, good. Now, suppressive group is another source of suppression. Now, a group can be the Internal Revenue Service, for example, or an industry trade association that doesn't want you to expand your group, like a compliance group, or a lawyer, a law firm might be trying to stop. Or there might be, government agencies like CIA, FBI, all these different groups they're trying to stop and prevent. That's what they do.
Right.
in large ways. Okay, so that's a suppressive group. Now he also says potential trouble source is a person who's connected to a suppressive person, group, or thing. Suppressive thing. Ah, and what could be a suppressive thing? Well, if you have $1 million in the stock market crashes, that could be a suppressive thing, right?
Absolutely.
Or how about having too much debt and not being able to make your payments and losing sleep at night, and all these kinds of things that happen from that. Okay, so we have a pretty broad area of what can be suppressive persons, groups, or things. These are sources of suppression. And here we are, our small little, little business, and we're trying to run and try to make it go right, and you're running all cylinders and so on and so forth, and all of a sudden we get whacked by a little bit of suppression. And that's what happens when you try to expand. Okay, if you're doing something good,
I have to say, when looking at it like that, you realize the courage that it takes to actually start and run a successful business, right? You don't until you put it like that, you just go, wow, the people that are actually doing that are a little bit of a different breed, right? I mean, would you agree with that?
I tell my clients, I'm going to digress for a moment. I tell my clients, I'm like, let me make sure I understand something. You went to school for how many years? 6, 7, 8, 9 years to learn your profession, whatever it is, veterinary medicine, dentistry, whatever. Okay, good. And you got no business training at all? Nope, not that I know of. And then you decided it'd be a good idea to go out there and start your own business without a lick of business training at all. Okay, not only that, but no finance or true economic training, which of course is the basis of all this. And I look at them and they're like, oh yeah, I must have been stupid. No, you weren't stupid. You were courageous in the extreme. I mean, are you kidding me? What kind of cojones does it take for you to go out there with no training at all and say, I'm going to start my own thing, man? I mean, I love that. And there's a word I use for you people who do that kind of thing. You small business owners out there, there's a word for you. It's called recalcitrant.
Wow.
RECALCITRANT. Recalcitrant. You know what that means? Hard to manage or control. Wow. And that's you. You see what I mean? Yeah. Yep. So you're surviving by your wits and your just raw ability and courage, and that is, you're the leaders of our society. I mean, so that's why we're here doing this, to help y'all out.
Well, thank you for bringing these tools out.
Of course, absolutely. Well, Mr. Hubbard had all this dialed in, man. I mean, come on. So, all right. So we're back to potential trouble source, right? So it's going to happen. If you're going out there and try to change the world's probably not going to, in every single way, welcome you with open arms. Okay, so we understand that risk. Okay, so now we know what potential trouble source is. We have to understand how to identify it in ourselves, and as importantly, in the people you hang with. Your business associates, your employees, your clients or customers or patients, whatever you call them. We have to understand what we're looking at here. So in the reference called PTS handling is putting an end to, right? PTS meaning potential trouble source. He says there are 2 stable data. Now, what's a stable datum? Stable datum is something that's true, man. You can count on it. It's like it's like a part of a foundation of your thought process. All right. There are 2 stable data which anyone has to have. So you got to have the data. You have to understand it, which means no misunderstoods. And you have to know are true. And he puts that in capital letters. Know are true. You got to know it to your bones, man. In order to obtain results in handling the person connected to suppressives. Now, connected. Let's make sure we clarify what connected means. Connected means having a communication line with.
Okay.
That's what connected means. Having a communication line with. Hey, man, we talk on the phone every day. I talk to my mom once a week. I'm working in the office with a business partner who I'm in communication with all the time. Or my employee. Or my kid. Or the neighbor down the street. That's connection. Of course, we're all connected to the IRS because we have to report our finances every year, which is funny. I can go on, but we're just being recorded. Okay, good. So
I'll shut it off for a second.
What a funny planet. Okay, anyway. So he says these data are, number 1. This is the hardest thing for especially healthcare professionals to get their head. That all illness, that's being sick, under the weather, not feeling up to it, fever, you know, my hormones are out of whack. I mean, like to a point where it's super symptomatic, right? All illness, all, what does all mean?
Everything.
Anything, everything, okay? That all illness in greater or lesser degree, now there's a gradient scale of illness, right? Deathbed and everything in between. That all illness in greater or lesser degree and all foul ups. What's a foul up? A mistake.
Something messed up. Yep.
A mistake. You know, like you watch place kickers in football. Okay? They hit a shot 30 yards out, automatic. You know, 25 times in a row in practice. They're going to, in a game, miss it. Mistake, right? There's some suppression going on. Maybe the coach said something to them, whatever, right? But here, listen to this. All illness in greater or lesser degree and all foul ups. Foul ups are like things that happen, you know, that just don't normally happen. Accidents, maybe, you know, things like that. Stem directly. Stem means come from, directly, which means only from that source, you know, no via, and only from a PTS condition. Now, I did a seminar on this, and this healthcare professional said, "You mean all my patients are PTS?" That all illness in greater or lesser degree and all foul ups stem directly and only, which from no other source, from a PTS condition. So you're saying all my patients are the effect of a suppressive person, group, or thing? Yes. I can unequivocally answer yes, that is a fact. I don't believe it. Okay, go check it yourself. Go test it yourself. You know, it took me a while to get that myself. It took me probably 10 years of just like testing and observation to get myself to recognize that this is true, man.
Absolutely.
It's just true. I don't know. You might not like it, you know, but it's true. All right, good. So all illness in greater or lesser degree and all foul ups stem directly and only from PTS condition. Whew. Wow. That means when your employee calls in sick, guess what? They got suppression and they went effective it. That's all. That's what it means. And it means that every single time. It wasn't the fact they were outside and it was cold and rainy and they came in and got a cold. That's not what it means. Okay. For them to get,
you know, Chris, I'm also thinking that means that as doctors too, every day, all day long, you're coming in contact with people that are PTS. I mean, that's all day.
All day long.
That's got to have some effect, right? That's
sure it does. We have doctors that get sick all the time. Clients, oh, we got quick illnesses, couple days. You know, oh, I was down with the flu. Okay, well, got some suppression there. You know, or chronic. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, this is kind of interesting, isn't it?
very true.
Okay, that's data number one. Now, data number two is that getting rid of the condition requires three basic actions. So you have to take action on this. It doesn't just go away by taking NyQuil or something like that. You gotta do something with the suppressive person, group, or thing. You gotta be cause, right? Okay, so first of all, you have to discover it. You gotta sit there and go, where's the suppression coming from? Because you know it's there. You gotta discover it. Where'd it come from? Okay, and it comes from either present time environment, or if you look at what Mr. Hubbard says, it comes from a restimulation of something in the past, which could also happen, right? Mm-hmm. So it may not be readily available, but you got to discover that it's coming from somewhere. That's the first thing we got to figure out. And number two, we either got to handle it, in other words, get cause over it in some way, form, or fashion. And Mr. Hubbard worked out a whole technology on how to do this, or disconnect. Now, disconnect basically means what it says. It's like you have a communication line with somebody, you got suppression from them, you cut the communication line. See ya, don't want to be ya. Good roads, good weather. I'm done. I'm going on with my life, you're going with yours. It's all good. Okay? Which takes some guts. Of course, sure. Everybody watching this has courage to the extreme, so that should not be a problem. All right, good. So that's the data. I'll repeat them again real quick. That all illness in greater or lesser degree and all foul-ups stem directly and only from a PTS condition. And two, that getting rid of the condition requires three basic actions. A, discover. B, handle. Or disconnect. So now we know the simple formula for how to handle this stuff. There's a couple other things that I want to say. Mistakes. This is out of a bulletin called Mistakes, Anatomy of. Now, this is pretty telling as well. In the presence of suppression, In other words, when suppression is there, down on you, right? One makes mistakes. That's interesting comment. That means if there's no suppression there, people don't make mistakes.
Wow.
So to err as human is not really true, is it?
To err is suppressed. To err is suppressed, right?
Isn't that funny? Again,
Absolutely.
we're in the matrix, right?
Yeah.
So in the presence of suppression, one makes mistakes. So if you see someone making mistakes, he says people making mistakes or doing stupid things, guilty, is evidence that an SP or suppressive person exists in that vicinity, in that area. People making mistakes or doing stupid things. You ever do something stupid? I mean, I watch myself do stupid stuff.
Sure.
I see other people do stupid stuff. So they're stupid? No, they're not stupid. There's suppression in that immediate vicinity. That's what it means.
I got to tell you a little story just on this, just a personal thing. Many years ago, right, I hired this young lady, and she seemed okay, but she was stellar. I mean, she was stellar. And within months, I sat with her one day. I said, listen, I'm so impressed with you that we're really going to move you up to another higher position. She had never missed a day, nothing like that. Okay. Literally within a day or two, she called out like 3 or 4 times, and I ended up firing her probably 2 weeks later. And I said, how is that possible that here I go and I give her this great news, we're going to give her a raise, we're going to do all this, and she completely collapses. And I found out a year later with someone that was her friend that her husband was really the suppressive, and that she came back and she was all excited about the new opportunity, and whatever he said to her just cut her legs out. And that was really one of my first experiences where I said, wow, look at this. Look how powerful this technology of suppression is and how this really devastates people's lives, right? I mean, it really can, like, if you're stuck in that situation where you're sick, you're making mistakes, you're doing foul ups, you're doing stupid things, and that becomes your sort of normal existence. It's horrible. It's really a horrible thing.
Yeah, I mean, they consider it normal. It's normal to err as human, like I said, or to make mistakes, and just everybody does stupid things. Yeah, everybody gets sick. You know, all these things. It's suppression. But look at the entire pharmaceutical industry right now. You know, it's sick care, isn't it? You know, if you're sick, we can give you a pill. So isn't that a bit suppressive? I mean, just they profit from suppression. Look at it for what it is, right? It's very fascinating. So, but you know, being an economist and being a financial advisor, obviously I look at this from the money perspective. Now, the interesting thing about what I do for a living is people think I deal with math, and I don't. I deal with human behavior, and mostly irrational human behavior. But it's true. And you know, it's interesting because we all have buttons on money, and we seek advice from people, but we don't really recognize whether they're suppressive people or not. And this is not just financial professionals who get paid. This is family members that we ask for advice. And one of the problems is the more wealth you make, the more people are going to be pissed off about it. Do you see?
Yeah.
And that's why there's so few wealthy people, because you have to get beyond this, first of all, agreement, because you're not going to get an agreement from the masses that you have money. All you have to do is just look at the media for 5 minutes, or your employees. When you buy a new car because you're successful, you put it on Facebook and say, good example. I have a friend of mine. Good example right here. A friend of mine had a stellar year. He's a consultant. He saved his clients, I'm talking $15 million in taxes.
Ooh.
Just this last year. Okay.
Wow.
So he got a banner year. He goes out and he buys himself a new Porsche. He buys his wife a new Porsche. You know, he's 50-some years old. His kids are grown. He's got money. He's enjoying life, right? He buys his and hers Porsches, puts a picture on Facebook, and lets everybody know about it. And then the next post I get is, I cannot believe the amount of evil people have when they make me wrong for buying these Porsches, and you know, and I can't, and my wife's crying, and so on and so forth.
Oh my God.
And I'm not kidding. This is, and basically what happened is he wanted to share his success. He wanted to say, I was successful and I want to reward myself with these things. And then he got all of this flashback on Facebook, people posting, well, you know, you're showing off, and you know, all these different comments. And guess what? He was sick the last 3 days.
Wow.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it comes from family members. He called out a family member, friends. He's got 80% of them are like, go for you, man. That's awesome. Great job. But that's that 20%. It's that 1 out of 5 that sticks the dig in there, man. And that's the one you got to look out for, because that stuff sticks. As good-hearted, as warm, caring, and value-driven people that we are, we want everybody to love us. Well, not everybody.
It seems like your attention goes right to that. If you
Well,
don't
of
know
course
this
it does.
technology, it just takes you right out. No question.
Yeah, and I'm an artist, and if you're an artist, oh my God, you got to know this stuff, man. You can't survive in the world of creation if you don't know that 1 out of 5 people just got to hate you because you created. You just got to know that, But anyway, so now we know what PTSness is, right? PTSness,
Yep.
state or condition of being a potential trouble source. That's PTSness. Okay, good. So mistakes, anatomy of in the presence of suppression, once one makes mistakes, people making mistakes or doing stupid things is evidence that an SP exists in that vicinity. All right, good. So we have that. Now, the reason why this is very important in the world of money is because it shows up there. Money is the biggest symptom, and one's havingness of money. How much you have, how you control it or not control it, what your attitudes about it are, tells me volumes about what level of suppression you're under. And I can almost actually pick the exact person, group, or thing that you are being affected by. It's actually pretty transparent. But going back to PTS personnel and finance, PTS personnel and finance reference is fabulous. It says here, a chronically ill person. What's chronically ill? Okay, the medical establishment has given multiple names for chronically ill: diabetes, cancer, heart disease, lymphoma, on anything you can name is a chronic illness, something that stays around for a while, right? Progresses, muscular dystrophy, MS. All these things, right? We all have a family member who's dealing with some kind of neurological issue or arthritis or things like that. These are chronically ill people. It's just there all the time. Okay? So he says this, a chronically ill person, whether the person is known to be connected to a suppressive or not, is always found to have been so connected and PTS.
Wow.
Okay, so, what does always mean?
All the time.
He never minced his words, did he? Okay,
Right.
So a chronically ill person, this is a person who's sick all the time, whether you can see it or not. Oh, I'm just not doing well these days, or someone just inexplicably loses 50 pounds, and I'm dealing with some personal stuff. You're chronically ill. I mean, let's call it for what it is, right? Something non-optimum. Whether the person is known to be connected to a suppressive or not is always found to have been so connected and PTS. Always found to be connected. It's not the weather. It's not your diet. Well, diet can be a suppressive thing if you're eating toxins, I guess, right? Anyway, that is a very important piece of identifying the potential trouble source. Okay. Dealing with finances. And as a business owner, your finance is the oxygen of your business. Just like your body needs oxygen and the flow of exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide coming out and all that stuff to respirate, to feed the body and make the engine run. Money is the oxygen of your business. It has to flow in and out for the business to operate and run. It's a huge communication channel, actually, of the business. So that is regulated by somebody. Okay, and this is a policy that Mr. Hubbard put down for his groups, which of course gives us probably some pretty good insight as to how we should be managing ours. And he says it is unshakable policy hereafter that no person who is PTS or chronically ill may be on finance or registrar lines. A registrar is sales post. Anybody who's in sales is a registrar. Registrar is someone who registers somebody for something, right?
Still the money lines, right?
The money lines.
Yeah.
Okay. Or in top command posts. This is your CEO, director of the company, your chief financial officer, your head of human resources, your public executive people, those top echelon of your business. I'll leave it at that. Okay. So it's unshakable policy hereafter that no person who is PTS or chronically ill may be on finance or registrar lines or in top command posts. Now, why? Well, there's a reason why. I'm gonna get to this in a second here, but we are so reasonable about our money. You know, the fact that we don't have money is I'm going to go on a limb here, is evidence of suppression on your finance lines. If you just don't have it, there's suppression there. It's coming from some person, group, or thing. It's either immediately in the vicinity, or just by the fact that you're in the matrix and don't have a solution on how to handle the money. This goes for your business and for your household.
Christopher, I heard something, my statistic might be slightly off, but I heard something that the general public, if they were asked to put together like $2,000 in cash, 80% of them would not actually have that. They're basically, everybody, I hate to generalize that, but the majority of these people are living paycheck to paycheck, and they're one paycheck away from. Is that what you find? Yeah,
it's really bad. It's really, really bad. And as business owners, I mean, I can give you some rules of thumb, how much cash you have sitting around. It's totally okay, by the way, to have a couple $100,000 just sitting in cash doing nothing, just sitting there. It's totally okay. I mean, you got to think in terms of millions, not in terms of, have a few dollars. I mean, come on. So, but here's why. Let me give you the technical fact. Here's what Mr. Herman says about a technical fact. He says a person who is connected to a suppressive person, group, or thing will dramatize. Now, dramatize is to act out, usually unknowingly, to act out, to dramatize. A person who is connected to a suppressive person, group, or thing will dramatize. One of two things. A can't have, or an enforced overt have on an organization or staff members. Now, what the hell are we talking about here? Can't have, enforced overt have. What are these things? Well, a can't have means just that, a depriving of substance or action or things. Depriving, to keep away from, to not supply. That's deprivation, okay? So it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Okay, so he gives examples. Okay, he says a PTS person will run a can't have on the organization and its staff by refusing income. Now that just blows my mind. Refusing income. I want to pay you for your services. Nope, we don't need it. You have a discount today, or just not collect the co-pays at the front desk, or what about sending out postcards to get leads and just don't follow up on the leads? This happens every single day in every single business to a greater or lesser degree, right?
Absolutely.
Well, that's a bit of a running a can't have. There's got some PTS-ness there. Suppression is somewhere around the vicinity. It's just that simple. Okay, so refusing income. Now, statistically, I work in the financial circles quite a bit, and actually it's financial consulting. It's really consulting about business maximization, and I ran into a guy who does a lot of surveys on the business itself and how much of the resources of the business are being used. Now, what we do is we say, your business should sell for X dollars. And if it sells for X dollars, then you're maximizing all of your systems to the highest possible degree, and you're going to be upper 5% of all the businesses in your market that would sell if you are, optimally running your business. And he keeps a whole metric of this, and he discovered that the average business owner is running at about 73% of their capacity, which means they're wasting 27% of their resources. Wow. In income not made, or some product not being created, or whatever, just inefficiencies built into their business. The average is 73% of capacity, 27% loss. So if you've got $1 million practice, dental practice, you're losing $270,000 a year.
Wow. That's your profit right there.
There's your yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. And that's, not having that's rewards and penalties being out, not having your staff producing, adding, training, systems built in your business organization. It's inefficiency in your marketing, not surveying first and not knowing, what kind of response you should be getting for your marketing efforts. Follow up on sales. I mean, this goes into every division of the organizing board, right? So 27% is being lost, and this is where this comes from. This is can't have. You can't have the full effect of the system that you've created. Isn't it fascinating?
That is fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Okay, number 2. This is what grinds my gears right here. Wasting income made. That's the second can't have. Oh, we made all this money. Oh, let's go ahead and waste it. Okay, what's wasting money? Because what follows an overt? Justification. Oh, I worked hard for that. Right?
Wow. Yep.
It's true. Let's be honest, right? Okay, I have no problem someone buying a Maserati or a Rolls or whatever, as long as you don't forfeit everything else to have that thing.
Right.
It's a matter of ethics, and it's a matter of dynamics and all these other elements, right? Conditions. What condition you're actually in.
Sure.
But wasting income made, I mean, I deal with this in financial planning all the time. The average client that works with us is gaining $100,000 a year in cash wealth. That's our average client. And why do we get those kind of results? Is because we have them stop wasting money. Just stop wasting it. If you just look,
what's the biggest thing you find somebody wasting? Like, if you were to just go through your average client, what's the biggest thing?
Three things. Good. Number 1, Mr. Hubbard says this: the biggest loss to finance, I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the reference in front of me, is income that should have been made that wasn't. Okay, that's paraphrasing. It's okay, but he has something to that effect. The money you should have been making, that's a 27% loss. The money you should have been making and didn't make. That's the biggest loss to finance. Okay, the second biggest loss is not paying yourself as the owner. You as a small business owner think everybody else's hand is more important than yours. And that's simply not true, because without you, there's no game. Without your risk.
And Chris, that's a different hat than if you're working in the practice. So if you're working producing in Division 4, right, that's different. Yeah. Still saying there should be a fee paid to as the owner, which is a separate hat, right? Okay.
Yeah, the owner is a different hat than an executive or being a practitioner or a technician in a small business. But you got to pay yourself as the owner, because if you look at it from a hierarchy, your business is subservient or subsidiary to your parent company. Your parent company is a business. Your household is a business. And once you understand that and how it flows, because the IRS certainly understands that. That's how they tax you.
That's true.
But once you understand that, then you understand how parent companies work and corporate structure, and how subsidiary companies work, and how the agreements are of flows of profit and protections. You start to really build wealth when you start to understand that. So by not paying yourself out of the business and thinking there's going to be money left over is a massive loss. I mean, millions of dollars over a working career. The third loss, income tax. I did a survey of 25 doctors based on about 21 different tax strategies that accountants sometimes take and sometimes don't, based on their own understanding or bias or whatever. The average loss per doctor per year was at least $20,000. Average. Now, in some cases, I mean, we did one transaction last year. We saved a doctor $60,000 in income tax, just one transaction. Okay, so but you have to understand how these things work and use them. That's the whole point. But these are massive losses, because you can either take that $60,000, invest it back into your own self-help, ability, your business, whatever, or you can pay for wars and welfare. It's your call. There's just an ethical component to that I think you need to take a look at. So those are the 3 biggest losses, and that's where wasting income made really starts to show up in big neon lights. It's funny to me. I had a conversation with a physical therapy consultant. He says, yeah, people will go from booth to booth trying to save $200 on a payment for a laser. Yet when you show them how to save $10,000 in your income tax, they just look at you like this blank look on their face, And it's true. It's an element of confront. We can confront the $200 a month payment.
Right,
We can't
right.
confront, oh my God, income tax. I don't know anything about it. I'll just pay them to get the IRS off my back. Suppression.
Big time.
Suppression.
Big time.
You are under suppression when you think that. Oh my gosh, accountants and I have a good time with that one. So anyway, now number 3 here is accepting wrong customers. You ever have any customers you probably shouldn't have? The cold, prickly types, that give you that don't really provide value to you, but take your time and energy.
Absolutely.
Fire them, because the PTS person will force those people on your organization. They'll take them in. He'll be fine. He'll be good, and so on. And then of course they end up being train wrecks like they always are. I'll give you an example. In my firm, we have a policy that we do not accept inheritance cases.
Inheritance cases.
We do not accept them. Now, if you're a small business owner and you're killing it on your own, and mom and dad leave you a few bucks, no problem. But if you come to me and say, I just got a few $1 million from mom and dad, I have never had a job, blah, 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 we don't take you.
Wow.
Because I've done it 11 times in my career. And every single time they took my time, attention, energy, and didn't have enough responsibility for the money to ever make a decision.
Wow.
Isn't that fascinating?
That is fascinating, because they didn't really produce the product of it.
Right.
So right. Wow. That's heavy duty.
Yeah, it is. And every time I go in there, this time it's different. And it's never different. It's never different. It's never different. Okay. And there's 2 more, he says, that what the can't have is. Okay. Number 4, fail to provide staff or service. So if you have a PTS person, employee, they just don't serve your client. They just don't call them back. They don't set the appointment. They don't serve them in some way. They exchange an abundance type way. They maybe have an HR person. It says, we're dying over here. We need a marketing person to bring in more clients. And they sit there and say, well, we don't need it. We don't have the money. We can't afford a new marketing person. I look for PTSness there in that area. And then 5, or E, he calls it here, advocate overt products. To say, hey, we did our best. It wasn't a good product. So what? Just one person. That kind of justification comes off. Well, those 5 things kill you. Let's repeat them real quick. A person one can't have, which is depriving of substance, action, or things. And that is A, refusing income. B, wasting income made. C, accepting wrong customers like psychos, he says, and forcing them on the organization. D, fail to provide staff or service. And E, advocate overt products. So if you see any of that going on from any person in your organization, here's what you know. You have a person who is PTS to greater or lesser degree to a suppressive person, group, or thing. And the handling that is discover, handle, or disconnect. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Fabulous. Okay, good. So
very powerful, Chris. When you put it on the money lines like this, you don't always think. You think about it in terms of other things, but talking about it in terms of money, very powerful.
Yeah, that's where it shows up. I mean, I can look at a tax return and see where the suppression is coming from. It's pretty fascinating. Okay, now the person will dramatize a can't have. So we got that one figured out. A depriving of things, right? Now, let me give an example of a can't have. Your accountant. Now, that's a general comment. Please don't take it literal, like I'm talking about your personal accountant. I'm talking about general accountants in my experience. Accountants are generally a little PTS. And let me explain why. There's something I want to read to you in my references here. Give me just 1 second to find it.
Sure.
Okay. This is now the same reference. And he says, as a comment on something that may impinge on orgs or organizations and might affect them, the foremost is in capital letters, okay, for emphasis, foremost, leading, biggest, reason for a failing national prosperity and inflation is a personal income tax agency. This runs a vicious can't have on every citizen and makes them PTS to the government. Individuals even begin to run a can't have on themselves and do not produce. You ever have the thought, well, if I just make money, they're going to tax it anyway?
Absolutely.
Miles
You
enough
see
for this
people,
the rest of the
yeah,
year.
absolutely.
That you're PTS. I mean, not to evaluate, but
Yeah,
it
no,
depends.
I've seen it enough. I've seen. Listen, you talk to people, and they say, I had spoken with a patient, and he said, "Listen, I have a solution to the economy: tax everybody at 95%, and I swear to God, and redistribute the wealth." And I was like, "Well, that's communism." What?
By definition.
Right?
By
So,
definition. Okay. This is the cause of a failing national economy. This is the cause of a failing national economy. So when we're discussing income tax, we should be discussing why it exists at all. That's the conversation I have about income tax. But I digress. It can be a factor in an org and must be handled on the individual so affected. So who is the one who is most up against the IRS? Your accountant. Your accountant was never really trained in tax generally. They're trained in accounting, which is a historical representation of the transactions you did in your business. When we go to them and say, hey, I need you to give me tax advice, they're not going to do that. It's not their job. Their job is to do a tax return from an accounting perspective that is compliant with the Internal Revenue Code. Okay, nothing in there about reducing or minimizing income taxes. That's up to you. But the accountant, what do they say? Well, I wouldn't take that deduction because that's going to be a red flag. Okay, well, red flag. Does the IRS have a red flag book where you take a certain deduction, they're going to automatically audit you? No. Well, then that must not be true, which of course it isn't. Or I wouldn't take that deduction because it raises your risk of audit. Really? Now, show me the statistical proof. Show me the number of people who took this particular deduction and exactly how many percentage points their risk of audit went up. Show me the exact proof. Well, we just know. Well, no. Show me the proof. There is no proof, of course. So we end up not taking deduction, having a can't have run-ons because we can't have the money we produced. We can't have the money we produced because what? We might get audited. So what? So you get audited. If you make money, you're going to get audited. Just make your peace with it now. An audit is an impartial review of the did you follow the laws or not? And if you take deductions and know the rules well enough to take the deductions, then why do you need to not take the deduction? That's ridiculous. Okay. But whenever I hear this, well, my accountant doesn't want me to take that deduction. Why? It's perfectly legal if you do this, this, and this. It's perfectly legal. And if you can say up to the IRS agent and say, I took the deduction because the law said this, what's the problem? Then take it. I mean, if not, then that tells me there's suppression there. Of what? For threat? For fear of?
right.
Oh my gosh, you're going to audit me. So what? It's a red flag. So what? You see what I mean?
But you know, Chris, also when you think of an accountant, you think of, we've almost been brought up to think they're a financial advisor. They're, like you said, they're actually going to figure out ways to actually limit your taxation. You're not thinking of them as simply a clerk that is filing paperwork that is compliant with whatever they believe the compliance to be. So what a different perspective that is. Wonderful.
Yeah, and there are a few accountants out there who are rock stars, who are tax planners. But don't go to your accountant and say, well, my accountant doesn't really help me because it doesn't help me save in taxes. Well, did you ask him when you hired him? Do you do tax planning to help me mitigate taxes in 3 to 5 years? If he says, no, I don't do that, then what are you complaining about?
Right.
You know? But the part I have trouble with is, well, don't take that because of this threat. That's suppression. That's PTS. He's PTS running a can't have on you as the business owner for no real legal or logical reason. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger problems we have with trying to get our clients financially independent, because it's hard to do that when you're paying 30% of your income out every year to the IRS when you can only pay 20. That's a lot of money. Okay, so now we have enforced overt have. An enforced overt have means forcing upon another a substance, action, or thing not wanted or refused by the other. So this is like having something forced on you you don't want. Okay, so let's go back to the IRS. Do you really want to file your 1040 and your 1120s and all your different tax forms every year? Do you want to do that? No, it's enforced. Why? Because penalties, threat, jail, breaking the law, all these different things, right? That's an enforced overt have. Having to deal with, oh my gosh, the greatest example is this couple, the cake makers out in Oregon.
Yeah, yes. They got fined $125,000 or something like that.
Enforced overt have. I mean, that's just as bad as it gets. I can't believe how many human rights that violates. But anyway, the point is that we live in a society that is to that degree suppressive. And
Well, Christopher, what about the penalty for not buying health care? Wouldn't that fit in the same category?
Enforced over half, right? Suppression. And all these are all good examples. Insurance companies like trying to get reimbursed for the most insane thing I've ever seen is a chiropractor treats the patient, gives the service, and then waits. First of all, that's ridiculous. Waits for reimbursement, and then it's not what he billed for. I don't understand. That's enforced over at half. We only think your service is worth $18 or whatever. That just drives me crazy. Okay, good. So that's enforced over at half. We got the difference between can't have and enforced over at half. This is what the PTS person will dramatize. Now, here's why, because you should know why this happens. Okay, the PTS person, well, first of all, he says, the technical fact is that a PTS person got that way because the suppressive was suppressive by depriving the other or enforcing unwanted things upon the person. The PTS person will dramatize this characteristic in reaction to the suppression. So here's what happens. You've got a person who's PTS, an employee, somebody, running can't have on your business, refusing income aid and so on. What are they doing? They're acting out what happened to them.
Oh.
What happened to them. And for them to make sense of it, whether, whenever it happened is not the point. It happened to them. So if them trying to deal with it, trying to handle that uncomfortableness or whatever, they are dramatizing it in reaction to the suppression they had themselves. So they themselves are victims of suppression. And they're just kind of doing this, recording of, this is what I should do then to handle it. And so they do it to you, unknowingly or knowingly, depending on how you look at it. And but you have to know that that's why they're doing it. It's happened to them. So so that is where all of this comes from. And I think this is such critical technology that every business owner really has to understand, because you're all going to have to deal with it. And if you don't know where it comes from and why, you're going to be affected by it. And it's going to show up in your finances. But worse than that, it's going to show up in your health. We all say health and wealth, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, wealth is easy. Wealth is easy to see. Health starts to really manifest itself when you're into the symptomatic stage, which of course is late stage ill health, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's really important to know. Okay. So as we go through this here, I want to share with you a couple more points, and then we'll wrap up my part. There's a reference called More on PTS Handling. And this is another part of PTSness that seems to be a little more veiled, a little less noticeable, because it's our culture. And he says, you will find that PTS policy calls for disconnect or handle, which of course we've already covered. Here's what he says. This is fascinating. PTS is a connection to an SP, suppressive person. PTS is a connection to an SP. That is true. But what may be overlooked is that persons of the middle class. What? What may be overlooked is that persons of the middle class, parenthesis, which is a culture, not an income bracket. Now understand that.
Wow,
culture,
that's pretty heavy duty. Yep.
Not an income bracket. So the middle class has nothing to do with what the politicians are talking about. You make so much dollars for a household, you're middle class. That's all bunk anyway. This is a culture. This is a belief system. Okay? And he says, which is a culture, not an income bracket, to which belong all of the Puritan. Now, what is Puritan? Okay, a Puritan. I'm going to pull it up here. A Puritan is, let's see here, a member of a group of English Protestants who regarded the Reformation of the Church under Elizabeth I as incomplete and sought to simplify and regulate forms of worship. That's the first definition. A person with censorious moral beliefs. So big censorship and morality, right? Especially about self-indulgence and sex. Okay, so that's what their views were as far as what he's talking about Puritan there, as far as the Oxford English Dictionary is concerned. Okay, comes from the Latin word puritas, meaning purity. Interesting. Okay, so the Puritan, very moral, very censorious people, hypocritical, do as I say, not as I do, right? Okay, mores are beliefs of this, beliefs of culture that are basic beliefs for survival, right? Okay, so I'm going to come back to this, which is a culture, not an income bracket, to which belong all the Puritan, hypocritical mores of the cop, which is the police officer or police force, and the get a job, be a moderate plugging success. Get a job, be a moderate plugging success. That is a compound word he uses to basically mean get a 9-to-5 job, don't make waves, do your 9-to-5, suicidal boredom, and you'd be fine. Which, of course, flies right in the teeth of you courageous, recalcitrant business owners who are going out there changing the world, right? Okay, so let's let's reframe this. Okay, PTS is a connection to an SB, that is true, but what may be overlooked is that persons of the middle class, which is a culture, not an income bracket, to which belong all the Puritan, hypocritical mores of the cop and the get a job, be a moderate plugging success, frown very terribly on anything that the least bit tries to make a better world. Sorry about that.
No, that's great.
Okay. Isn't that something?
That is unbelievable.
Isn't that a fascinating statement?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So when you go out there as a business owner and you're going to say, I'm going to change the world, look out, pal. Because all the people you've been hanging with, man, they're going to be like, who do you think you are? Get a job like the rest of us. 9-to-5 is the way to go, and I go at the end of the day and get my 3 beers at night and watch, Kardashians, and it's all good. Well, unfortunately, if you're going to go out there and make a change and increase your ability and be recalcitrant and courageous and all these things, well, you're going to have this to deal with, this middle class point of view. He says, the middle class wants the world of a job and order and even hypocrisy and cops because they are afraid. Afraid. So when you're out there and you're going, I'm gonna hire a bunch of staff and we're gonna go out there and make a $10 million company. What? Why? I couldn't do that. Why? Are you sure you're gonna be okay? Gosh, what about regulations and the IRS is gonna be on the target? Oh my gosh, I can't. They're afraid. They're terrified. They're freaking out for you. Now the way you handle that is like, thank you very much. I appreciate your worry. Okay, I'm doing my thing, man.
Handle or disconnect.
Stay over there. Handle.
Right.
Talk to the hand, right? Okay. Because man, you let those folks right here next to you. Well, gosh, what if you get sued? Well, what happens if the people don't like you? Blah 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 blah. And it runs and runs and runs and runs and runs, and all of a sudden you start going like this down the spiral, and you go PTS. Okay, just basically anything you see on television is catering to the middle class. Anything. Right. You see on television. If you want to escape out of that, start doing some, self-help things. Some of these gurus who like, hey man, let's go get it today. Motivational. Fill your mind and your days with that kind of stuff.
And I got to tell you, over the years, our television set's basically off most of the time at this point. There's nothing on. There's really nothing on.
I mean, there's a few comedies I like because they're stupid, but I'm not watching television to do anything but be entertained.
Yes.
Okay. So. I'm going to complete what he says in this paragraph. Okay, I'll repeat this. The middle class wants the world of a job and order and even hypocrisy and cops because they are afraid. They hold to their narrow views because any other views may disturb their 20-year house mortgage, the store, the job. So when someone decides to make a better world, they look on him as a direct menace, even though the dull middle class world is a sort of slavery and suicide. It is the middle class that tries the hardest to keep the down and outer out and down, who go along with the cop America and hate support of anything not their class. And nearly every PTS you have will be found one way or another to be PTS to the middle class. As a group, not as an individual. The middle-class parent world suppresses anything different. So you have PTSs.
Powerful, powerful stuff.
Powerful stuff. And of course, in the world of financial planning, you know, my whole industry is based on retirement planning. Retirement, what the hell's that?
Right.
Kind of odd, you know. I'm into financial independence planning. That's what I do. So anyway, isn't that great?
That is great. I love it.
Yeah. Okay.
Christopher, I tell you, you're bringing excitement to this field. Like, you know, when you start to think about accounting and finance planning, you almost want to fall asleep, right? It's like, oh, and that's probably the suppression that's been around it. You know what I mean? But you bring such life and enthusiasm. It's awesome. It's
Thanks,
awesome.
man.
No, absolutely. I got to start winding down. So we'll just, if you have any final summary, closing statements or anything, let's jump into those. Say goodbye.
I have a closing statement. Because now I gave you all the stuff like, oh my God, how do we handle this? How do we handle this PTSdness and suppression that's going to be part of our lives and so on and so forth? Well, I got a solution for you from Mr. Hubbard himself. And this is right out of the book, The Way to Happiness. Precept number 21, flourish and prosper. Flourish means to be in a state of activity and production, expanding in influence, thriving, visibly doing well, and prosper to achieve economic success, succeeding at what one does. So flourish and prosper. He says, sometimes others seek to crush one down, to make nothing out of one's hopes and dreams, one's future, and oneself. By ridicule and many other means, another who is evil intentioned toward one can try to bring about one's decline. For whatever reason, efforts to improve oneself, to become happier in life, can become the subject of attacks. It is sometimes necessary to handle such directly, but there is a long-range handling that seldom fails. What exactly are such people trying to do to one? They are trying to reduce one downward. They must conceive that one is dangerous to them in some way, that if one got up in the world, one could be a menace to them. So in various ways, such seek to depress one's talents and capabilities. Some madmen even have a general plan that goes like this. If A becomes more successful, A could be a menace to me. Therefore, I must do all I can to make A less successful. It never seems to occur to such that their actions might make an enemy out of A, even though he was no enemy before. It can be classed as an almost certain way for such madmen to get into trouble. Some do it just from prejudice or because they don't like someone. But however it is attempted, the real object of such is to make their target grow less and fail in life. The real handling of such a situation and such people, the real way to defeat them is to flourish and prosper. Oh yes, it is true that such people, seeing one improve his lot, can become frantic and attack all the harder. The thing to do is to handle them if one must, but don't give up flourishing and prospering, for that is what such people want you to do. If you flourish and prosper more and more, such people go into apathy about it. They can give it up completely. If one's aims in life are worthwhile, if one carries them out with such attention to the precepts in this book, if one flourishes and prospers, one certainly will wind up the victor, and hopefully without harming a single hair on their heads. And that is my wish for you, flourish and prosper. LRH.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. I got to give almost like applause on that one. That's awesome.
Isn't that something?
That is something. Christopher, and you are something as well, Christopher. Thank you so much for being on the webinar. This information is so powerful. Christopher, people that want to get in touch with you, want to learn more about you, how would they do this, sir?
Well, you can reach me, call me on my cell phone, 727-278-6757, 727-278-6757, or my email, Christopher@econologics.com, ECONOLOGICS.com. And you can go to my website at pchristophermusic.com.
Christopher Music, thank you for being on the show, sir. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
So that brings us to a close of another Fast Track training webinar. I hope you enjoyed it. More importantly, I hope you got some fundamentals that you can actually take back and apply to your own success. And perhaps one day I'll actually have you on the show. Now, the next gradient of the Fast Track training is the EMA V modules. These are short video series that you can use to train yourself, to train your staff, and really turn the people around you into your team. If you want to find out which ones would most benefit you, shoot me an email at dan@effective effectivemanagement.net. That's Dan at effectivemanagement.net. And we'll do a free business analysis for you, and we'll find out which ones would be the best for you. And I want to again thank you for being with us. And again, thank you, Christopher Music. Great, great show.
Thanks so much.